p.m. Eastern Standard Time, YouTube, Facebook. How about you? You got your boy, one half of Dialogue with Dozie. I'm doing it, holding it down for my brother KV, Kim Varner. Tonight, one of the best shows that you'll get leading into the election. We'll talk about that in just a second. We open the show tonight with the dedication to a great one. Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones left us on last night to begin his eternal journey. Quincy, you mentioned excellence in entertainment. Mention Quincy Jones, award winner in every category, Grammys, Academy, every award there was, BET, NAACP, Canes, anything there was, from television to motion pictures to music to production to anything, putting together musical montages for presidential campaigns, for politicals, anything. If you just say the word quality, say Quincy Jones. He was there orchestrating as the maestro of, if you remember, back in the mid-'80s when Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie played as the host. Quincy was the actual maestro behind the scene of We Are the World. If you haven't seen that fascinating documentary, go back and look at it. You may have heard the song that raised so much money for victims. He was the one behind it. He is the one who introduced Will Smith as the Fresh Prince and was a door opener for a young African-American hip-hop artist in the TV collaboration. Quincy Jones, you just mentioned quality, and it's all over him. Quincy left us, but his legacy will never, ever be forgotten. Quincy Jones, music producer extraordinaire. We thank God for sending you our way, Mr. Quincy. So tonight's show we're talking about the real danger of electing Donald Trump. We're talking about the real danger of electing him. We're not re-electing him because Joseph R. Biden is the sitting president. He lost his chance to be re-elected in 2020. Whew, thank God. Anyway, I didn't mean to say that. So he is running as just a fresh candidate. So we want to talk about Project 2025, the real danger of electing Donald Trump. And there is no one better. She was with us about 5 weeks ago, the resident expert, my colleague at Faith in Florida, just a data person, just a news fact gathering person extraordinaire, and a person, Miss Linda Wiggins. Miss Linda, how are you doing today?
Good. Hi, everyone. I'm good. Thank you. And thank you for such a wonderful introduction. I didn't know I was all that, but now I do.
Well, you're more, but for time limitations, we live in it today. So this is how we're going to do it. Tomorrow night at this time, we will be getting an inkling of how the presidential election is shaping up. Now, you've heard us say it many times, Ms. Linda. You can, in fact, it's already done. All of the commentators are doing. You can take a map and you can just paint in the blue states and the red states as automatic, and just look at pretty much 7 states. And what we've learned lately, the last 24 hours has been cycling. There's a possible 8th state in the state of Iowa. And so those are the states that we will really be looking at. And it's possible that tomorrow night we won't know unless there's like almost a landslide. But we're looking forward. We're looking forward to this time tomorrow night, and I know we'll be watching. Ms. Linda's expert on Project 2025, and any piece of data that you need or anything that needs researching, listen, I was a doctoral student, so I know about research. She does it with excellence.
Yeah,
She really feeds
that's
us.
where I got my experience from
Yeah,
as
yeah, yeah.
well. Yep.
You keep us so well informed. For the people who don't pop on and look at what you're presenting, they're really missing out. That's all I can say. We're so grateful. We're gonna get right into the show. Miss Linda, tonight we're going to talk about the some of the tenets of Project 2025, and we're just going to let you take the lead with that. And we want to look at
Mhm.
those five before we sign off tonight. We want to look at those five Florida amendments and hear just the quick data on the effects on that too. Before we get started, and you'll hear us talk about it later on, but appreciation to he's my grandson, Mr. Isaiah Glenn. He's our producer tonight, standing in for Madam Producer. Hats off to the whole Go Get Your team. We'll talk more about them in a minute. Miss Linda, the show is yours.
Thank you. So let me just start out by giving a disclaimer because I have to, because I'm representing Faith in Florida. We are a 501c3. So we don't endorse candidates. So I am not endorsing anyone. I cannot tell anyone to vote for or who not to vote for. But what I can do is present the issues. And Project 2025 is one of the biggest issues of our time right now, and it is going to affect have a big effect on the outcome of this election because of the policies that the supporters and creators of Project 2025 are mandating, many of which have already been put into place not just in the state of Florida, but in other states too, such as Texas, Louisiana, other states around the country have already been putting these, enacting these into law. So, one of the big ones, and there's so much to it that I cannot cover, but I'll just touch on a few. And then we will, at the end, we'll give a link to a guidebook where people can do more research. Um, so, one of the big ones has to do with eliminating unions. And we know that unions, people call it union busting, and that's exactly what it's going to do. It's because, unions provide civil servants with certain protections. And a lot of those protections are not just class issues, but they also have to do with issues of racism that people can face in the workplace. And when you do away with unions, people will no longer be protected from unsafe working conditions, low wages, um, no cost of living increases, no paid days off. All the things that unions have done for working class people are going to be done away with because they want to eliminate unions.
Let me ask
Go
you a
ahead.
question, Miss Linda. Let me ask you this.
Hmm.
Uh, do of course we're tying this show into former President Trump because he has denied it.
Hmm.
And I have a question I want to ask you about unions, but let me just ask you quickly. Can you show the tie, how deeply embedded he is into personnel and otherwise and similar uh, executive orders he passed while he was president to Project 2025?
Oh gosh. I can give a broad stroke overview because there's so much that alone would be a separate project. Um, but the thing is, when he was president before, he passed a lot of executive orders on immigration, on teaching about systemic racism, on DEI, on a plethora of issues that have become law, especially in the state of Florida, but in other states across the country. But then he denies having any knowledge of Project 2025. But if you go to the Heritage Foundation's website, they talk about a big page that was written up in 2018, and they talk about how he implemented about two-thirds of their policy mandates, because Project 2025 is not new. It just so happens that this 922 page book that they just published is what's new, but their policy mandates go way back to the Reagan era, and probably even before that.
So,
And they proudly boast about how Trump implemented, much of their policy mandates.
so I hope you all have heard. My colleague has mentioned unions. Those of us who worked jobs, I'm a retired school teacher. One of the largest national unions in the nation is the NEA. Um, and that
Mhm.
union has come to my defense several times, um, and not for just always disciplinary issues, just several things, and they have set things in place. And this is what unions do. I heard you talk about union busting. We remember the union busting antics of the Reagan administration from
Mhm.
80 to 80, 80, 88, and how is that right? Yeah, no, 76, no, 80 to 88. We saw him just totally disband uh, the air traffic controllers union, and
Mhm.
they were out on strike. So we're tying this presidential candidate into this. Ms. Linda has told us just how embedded he is, but just listen to what she's saying about unions. She's moving on to the next issue, and we're going to just continue to see how these issues, these tenets of Project 2025, are not good for the electorate.
Right. Um, Another one that's going to be huge is what's going to happen in healthcare when it comes to healthcare. And so, three big things that they want to do. Sorry, here's I have to try to keep my finger centered. So, they want to cut Medicare, they want to cut the Affordable Care Act, and they want to cut Medicaid expansion.
Mm,
Okay. And the biggest reasons for this is not just because it helps working class people, but especially Medicaid expansion. I've been doing a lot more research on that very recently, and there is so much that the Medicaid expansion program does that Medicaid alone does not do. So, Medicaid expansion falls up under Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act.
mm,
So, that part of the program helps reduce a lot of the racial disparities that exist in the healthcare system. And this is why they want it cut, because it helps Black, especially, but Black and Brown people. It helps to give them a little bit of a boost up economically. So, they make these disparaging remarks about the program that are not true, talking about, making it seem as if people who can work are just sitting around and being lazy and trying to get welfare. And that is not true. This program is designed to help those who are in extreme you actually have to be in extreme poverty just to qualify to get Medicaid. And so this expansion program is filling in just a little bit of that gap for very, very low income people. And it helps them, first of all, to be healthier. It helps with them to be able to obtain employment because it fills in the gap where a lot of employers don't even provide their employees with health care. But it also um, helps with paying, these expensive medical bills that people otherwise would not be able to pay. And one of the things that I found out is that unions are very, very, very supportive of the Medicaid expansion program. And that was something I just learned within like the last week or so. I wasn't aware of that because I didn't know a lot about the Medicaid expansion program. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, um, we said from the oncast, a lot of the tenets of Project 2025 are detrimental to us as minorities, as in not just Black folk, but many minorities, but
Hmm.
also to the lower socioeconomic tier, and of
Exactly.
course, which is Medicare. And so, and I know some people may be tired of hearing about it. Some people may not know about it and just say, "Well, this doesn't affect me." You really need to pay attention to what's being said, because when you go to get
Hmm.
medical issues dealt with, and because if Project 20, if Donald Trump is elected, and I've said his name more than I've said on this show the last year, if that guy's elected, the tenets of Project 2025 will go into effect because it's consistent with big business and billionaires being
Exactly.
become richer, because there is a tie-in to wanting to privatize Medicare, Medicaid,
Yes.
and Social Security, right? Which our own
Yes.
senator, Rick Scott's a big part of that.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, that's a big part of the problem. And that's why this is so detrimental to the entire country. It truly, truly is. There are groups that are targeted even more so, but this is going to be detrimental to the entire country. But also, one thing that I really want to make very clear is that regardless of the outcome of the election, we have to keep Project 2025 in mind because like I said, it's been in place since the 80s. It's not disappearing. So, with let me see, the dismantling of Roe v. Wade that happened because of Project 2025, the dismantling of the Chevron deference doctrine, which is the
Safety.
yes. So
Oh,
it does away with the expertise of organizations such as the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, the NOAA that tells us about weather and climate change and so forth. That's the National Oceanic something Association. Um, so these things are already being done at even at the Supreme Court level. So it's going to continue to happen as uh, certain elected officials are put into place at the Supreme Court level, at lower court levels, at the state level, at local levels. So, regardless of the outcome of the election, we cannot become complacent because Project 2025 will continue until and which is why we have to continue to fight against it. And we have to pay very, very close attention to our local elections.
so let me admonish our guests, and we appreciate you joining us, our YouTube family and our Facebook family. Thank you so kindly for joining us both on my private page. I forgot to share it just a second ago, but most of you all knew to head over to the Dialogues page or to YouTube. Um, the show is not the same without your comments. That's one way of interacting, and we'll certainly honor your comments by addressing them. So please do that. Miss Linda's done a deep dive. I've been on several forums where you're getting the Clef Note Junior version
Yes.
of the Project 2025. So we talked about unions. I was so glad you just tied in climate change. I mean, the whole climate thing into
Mhm.
the elimination of the whatever that is that they want to eliminate.
NOAA, yeah.
Okay, yes, because there's a storm brewing right down off of the coast of Cuba, and
I
head look
know.
like it's heading between us and Mexico now.
Yep.
So these are the things that monitor. We want to make these just real life for you, so it doesn't sound academic or
Right.
it's so deep. It's not so scientific sound. We want to make it where you understand the everyday implications of it. And Ms. Linda's an expert of doing it. Ms. Linda, what's the next thing before we head out to break? What's another topic of Project 2025 that will be detrimental to our communities?
Oh, there's so much. Um, but another one is that they want to eliminate the Federal Department of Education. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The Federal Department of Education. Now, true enough, schools, if, for anyone that's ever taught, um, the state regulates the schools for the most part, but there are protections that are, that the Department of Education at the federal level um, provides for the entire country and mandates that the states cannot undo. But by eliminating the federal Department of Education, that gives each and every individual state, all 50 states, full autonomy to do whatever they want to do in their state without federal regulations. And one of, or let me name just a couple of things that would affect. It would affect Title I programs
Yes.
that provide school lunches and a lot of programs that help fill in the gap for low income students and for LGBTQ plus students. And also, um, it has to do with how this country has been trying to ban the teaching about slavery, about Black history, about systemic racism and oppression, about transgender people and LGBTQ plus people. So all these things would fall under the Federal Department of Education. So if they do away with that, they can indoctrinate students, K-12 students, with what it is that they want students to learn. And so,
Or
you know,
not.
go ahead.
No, I just said or not learn.
Or not learn. Yes, that's really, I think that's really more what it's about, is about what they don't want students to learn. And it's not just Black history, because it's really about American history. That's what the problem is. They don't want students to learn about the segment of American history that has to do with how this country has oppressed different groups of people. That's what they don't want taught. They want only children to just be blindly patriotic and think that this country has done no wrong, and any wrongs that it has done have been in the past and have been dealt with and corrected, and that it no longer exists. They want children to think that racism no longer exists, and we know that's just completely untrue.
So I know in talking about eliminating the Department of Education, and I guess this kind of touch, I know we're both former educators, and the thing that hits home to me is the school that I really cut my teeth in. Uh, that was a school that was a Title I school and was actually on the same property with the Title I office or Title I building
Mm.
for our district.
Mhm.
And when you talk about cutting out Title I's, and I know we're just skimming things, do you know the Title I is what opens the door for children with handicaps? Or,
Yes.
and we can't think of them. How many children in our communities are on an IEP? And there's nothing, there is no
Yep.
shame or anything. That is just what boosts this, like the fuel that boosts them on to a successful academic venture. And there,
Mhm.
all that is cut out and put in the hand of a conservative ideology if it's cut out.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And anyone who has ever taught, at first of all, if you've ever taught, period, you know how important it is for students to have an accurate IEP. Okay, that's an individual education plan. And so that helps. It doesn't just help the student, it helps the teacher to be able to teach the students at a level that helps them to succeed. Because back in the day, a lot of students, so many students got left behind. Number one, because their challenges were not understood fully. But not only that, even if their challenges weren't understood, there were not mandates in place to say, okay, we need you to teach these students the same way you teach, or not the same way, but in a manner that would make them successful in the same way that other students who are on grade level or who don't have certain challenges are taught. And it's really to help them to be um successful citizens of this country. And so when you take that away, it does damage to their self-esteem. It damages their sense of success, but it also makes it more challenging for teachers to be able to teach them properly.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, we have to rely on IEPs for each individual student, and they deserve it. They deserve nothing less, but we are constantly trying to give them less.
Miss
And
Linda,
then
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
No, no.
I just wanted to make one more point about the school lunch program, because that is huge as well.
That's right.
Very, very huge issue, because a lot of times students at Title I schools, the meals that they get at school are sometimes the only meal that they get, period.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And so kids, they'll get breakfast and lunch, or they'll get breakfast and lunch at school, but then they go home. And I've seen so many kids, my gosh, you think kids running, if you ever see them running to the corner store after school and getting, chips and this and that and the other, that's because sometimes that's all they can afford to get. It's not that they just want to, gorge themselves on junk. Sometimes that's it.
So some of the introductory, and please don't take lightly what Ms. Linda is sharing with us. Introductory to that was and we've been monitoring polls. The what am I trying to say? The integrity police that Governor DeSantis has put together, that program, I think it was $9 million to start it up. That doesn't take into account what it costs to keep it going now.
Mhm.
Those funds were taken from summer lunch programs, and allegedly, and I think I'm right about that. I've heard it from several
Mhm.
sources. I just haven't checked it to verify it. And if that's true, that's just a precursor of what Project 2025 will do to us by eliminating the Department of Education, the IEPs, the lunches, and those kind of things. Probably from a mother's perspective. Thank you, Ms. Linda. You're speaking
Mhm.
so passionately, and we thank you for that. Listen, we're going to come back and talk more about Project 2025, and we're going to talk about the Florida amendments. We're going to do a
Mhm.
quick dash into them when we get back off the break. But let's hear from our sponsors.
Okay.
Did you see those array of stars? Did you see that lineup of stars? Did you see the brightest and the best that Hollywood has to offer? Hey, I'm not gonna call the name of networks, but nobody can put together that network. They're right here. GoGigaCreations.com. They're the ones who have lined them up, have done their virtual work. The pandemic is over, thank the Lord, but we still do a lot of things virtually, and it can't be done any better than that GoGiga team is doing it right now. They got one of their apprentices. He probably doesn't want to be called an apprentice, but Isaiah Glenn has joined the two Toyas and Makia and team that bring together the best of your virtual needs, not only virtual needs, but web building, all of those things. Go get GoGigaWorld.com. They got you covered. All right. Listen, this is a time when we either do a dang dog, which we hadn't done one in a minute, or we do boo, or we do a shout out or something. You are despicable. But tonight we're doing what started with this show, and that is, are you serious? Are you serious? Tonight is a Are You Serious? It is of a different kind. This is not a negative, are you serious? But everybody, you don't have to be a sports fan. You don't have to be an NFL fan to have seen what Saquon Barkley did yesterday on the football field. Can we go to the videotape, as Warner Wolf would say? Did you see him when he not only twisted and turned? I used to coach running backs, and he hopped over. Could you just run it by one more time? Do it without the sound. I'm gonna do the voiceover. If you could key that up one more time. Saquon Barkley dancing between my beloved home team, Jacksonville Jaguars. And in the midst of his dancing to try to get that ball advanced, he turned around and did a reverse. He hopped over a guy on both feet. Are we able to bring that back up? If not, you just settle for me talking about it. Go to YouTube and look at that. Just put Saquon's run. That's all you got to do. It's not even, you saw how long it was. It's not 20 seconds. Amazing, phenomenal. I forgot what it's called. Are you serious? Saquon, are you real, man? Are you serious? Did you just do what I thought you did over the beloved Jags? Did I just see you hop over somebody 2 feet backwards? You jumped over them, landed, and continue to get positive yardage? Saquon Barkley, are you serious? We're back to the dialogue. My dear guest tonight is Ms. Linda Wiggins. And tonight we're talking about Project 2025. But let's not forget this. Well, let me say this first. Ms. Linda is representing Faith in Florida. With colleagues, so that's all I need to say about that. But Dialogue with Dozie is its own entity, and I'm representing the dialogue tonight. So what do you mean? Why are you saying that, Dozie? I'm saying that so that I can say to everybody, we're pointing out the real dangers of electing Donald Trump tomorrow. If you have not voted, we want you to take this into account, the dangers of electing him, because he is the subliminal architect of Project 2025. So we're talking about that. Ms. Linda, can we do a quick look at the amendments? The first amendment
Sure.
The first one deals with school board officials. And I know you can't do a recommendation. Could you just give maybe a 1 minute blurb on that, and I'll come back and I'll give the recommendation.
Okay. So, Amendment 1 proposes making district school board elections partisan. Because right now they're nonpartisan, they're not Republicans, they're not Democrats, they're just school board officials. Um, so, what this is proposing to do is to make them partisan. And this will reverse the 1998 constitutional amendment that mandated nonpartisan school board races. So, that's what Amendment 1 is about.
Okay, so my name is Dozell Varner, and I am representing myself in dialogue with Dozie, and we are recommend that you do not vote against that. Vote no to that. We don't want to let they want to put a R behind that, and in this climate, when there's so many R people, they want to be able to make school board officials identifiable like that. We're saying no, we're repealing that amendment and keeping it nonpartisan. The second one, would you give a brief explanation on that hunting and fishing, please, ma'am?
Absolutely. So, Amendment 2 proposes establishing a state constitutional right to hunt and fish. The issue with this one is that it's already a constitutional right. Um, Supporters say that enshrining it in the Constitution recognizes the importance of Florida's culture and economy, but opponents say that this will prioritize hunting and fishing over other wildlife management strategies, and it will potentially impact conservation efforts and jeopardize the safety of our wildlife, residents, and communities.
Dozell Varner's recommendation, well, the board of dialogue with Dozie, we say vote against that. Vote no on Amendment 2. Amendment 3, up and
Amen.
smoke. No, I'm joking. This is not up and smoke. Somebody got to bring some seriousness to.
You know what? so so Amendment 3, um sorry, where is it? uh oh my goodness, I lost my document. Give me one sec.
So you start talking about up and smoking, it just has all kind of far-reaching effects. I would have to say. I'm
So
just saying.
amendment Amendment 3 is actually a citizen initiated ballot measure. And this one is for the personal use of marijuana. So legalizing the personal use of marijuana. So this is important to know what it will actually do. So it proposes to legalize adult personal use of marijuana in Florida. And if it's passed, people ages 21 and older would be allowed to possess up to three, 3 ounces of marijuana and up to 5 grams of cannabis concentrate. And so supporters say that it will generate significant tax revenue, create jobs, um, take steps. This is a big one because it will help reduce the criminalization of marijuana possession. Opponents, though, worry about the potential public health impact, including increased usage among minors and the possibility of impaired driving incidents.
All of those safeguards are put in place. We understand the law would have to be written to state all of those things. But even as a former police officer, you see so many police officers coming up. And I am a citizen of my community. Had a discussion with a particular sect of brethren a few weeks ago who talked about, you succeeding and moving out in Sugar Hill and forgetting about the hood. My concern, my heart is going to always be in the hood. I'm from out east in Jacksonville, so I'm going to always be with our community. And I know the effects that you talked about criminalization that it has had on our community, our males particularly. I'm saying even in spite of my past employment. We're saying yes to that. That to let's get that in and stop putting people in jail and leaving them with a record that harms them down the road with other things. Very controversial. Amendment 4.
It is. Amendment 4 is to limit this. Well, let me just say this is another citizen initiated ballot measure. And this one is to limit government interference with abortion. And so it proposes, especially, this is especially relevant to Florida because Florida currently enacted a 6-week abortion ban, which, oh, actually goes into effect. I thought it already went into effect, but it goes into effect January 7th, 2025. So Amendment 4 wants to limit the effects of that 6-week abortion ban, do away with it, and limit government's interference with abortion in the state of Florida. And so supporters say that abortion is a personal medical decision that patients and their doctors should have the freedom to make for themselves. The current law bans abortion before many women even realize that they're pregnant. A 6-week ban, some women don't realize it until they're 6 or 8 weeks pregnant. Um, and there are no exceptions for rape, incest, and human trafficking. Opponents say that this amendment is extreme and it's misleading, and it would allow any healthcare provider to give an abortion to anybody, whether it's necessary or not, and it's going to eliminate parental consent. So those are the two sides.
So the Harris campaign and the party, the Democratic Party she represents, has done an excellent job of illustrating the ill effects. And the thing that I think we all saw Michelle Obama's speech on last Saturday, I think it was, not Saturday before last now, where she pointed out the medical implications for women. And
Mhm.
since then, there have been 2 high-profile cases of ladies that have died because of contracting sepsis, while doctors were literally standing over them with the ability, the tools, and the medications to assist them. But they had to wait till they got to a certain point. And when they got to a certain point, they could not, it was a point of no return. And so a lady goes to the hospital miscarrying, and she ends up dying because of these abortion bans. It's
Mhm.
that, and the aforementioned Florida has just to give you an indication. Well, let me just say this: anything that this government, the state of Florida's government, that leadership, the executive and the legislative branch, and to some extent the judicial branch goes along with, that's a good indication that it's nothing that meets the indication of most of our communities. So the governor vehemently fought, and they've got doctors and everybody trying to fight this amendment. So that's a good indication that this is an amendment that we're voting definitely to repeal before it goes into place. So the state of Florida will not have on its hands people dying because they could not get medical health care. And
Right.
it took the education, Ms. Linda. I'm a male. It took the education of watching Michelle Obama and the Harris campaign and some of these commercials and even listening to some of your presentations to show that it goes far beyond getting rid of an unwanted pregnancy, which many of us have our
Right.
own feelings about.
Right.
When it comes to the lives of women and our mothers,
Mhm.
our sisters, our wives, our aunties, our cousins. No, we have
Yes.
to look twice at this and give it a second. So we're advising us to vote yes to appeal the current law that's slated to go into effect on January the 7th.
Right.
Amendment 12, I think, speaks to homestead exempt.
And Amendment 5 is the annual inflation adjustment, for homestead property tax exemption value. Okay, that's a mouthful. So, this is what it does it proposes adjusting the homestead property tax exemption value annually for inflation. This change would apply to the portion of a home's value that qualifies for the homestead exemption, ensuring that the exemption amount keeps pace with inflation. Okay, so what supporters of this amendment say? They say it's going to protect homeowners from the eroding effects of inflation and ensuring that their tax exemptions maintain real value over time. And that's not a bad thing. That's that that's a good thing to have. However, there's more to it than just that. So opponents say that adjusting the exemption for inflation will decrease property tax revenue, affecting local government budgets and their ability to fund other services such as public safety, education, and infrastructure. And people who are not homeowners will likely be the ones made to bear the burden of this tax shift. But not only that, this amendment, if it goes into effect, it's going to affect public schools the most. So that's the issue with this homestead amendment or homestead property tax exemption.
So we're going to ask you to do your own research and vote your mind on that. We've heard both sides of that, and I think
Yeah.
some of what we hear on the opposition side may be kind of nervous Nelly, scary Mary uh, introduction, but I want you to balance that. We're asking you to balance that and decide what works best for you. If you're a
Mm-hmm.
homeowner, a property owner, and family businesses, yeah, that. So you look at all of the implications in that before. I don't think those
Yeah.
things happen immediately. But were there any other statewide? I know they have. Let's see.
Yep.
So
Let's
Bernard
see.
is asking,
I
how
think
would it
one more.
affect
Did we
schools?
go?
He's before we move on. He's at Bernard. My friend is asking, how would that affect schools? What Ms. Linda? What would your
Because of the it's going it can affect the property taxes of the schools because they're large they're a large entity um in terms of taxes, and because they're public schools, it will draw funding from the public schools. This is something that is actually happening on many different levels. So, not just with this homestead property tax, in other ways, a lot of funding is being pulled out of K 12 schools because the country is actually trying to push. This is one of the things that Project 2025 pushes for, is for not just charter schools, but
private school?
private and religious schools.
Right.
Yes. So a lot of funding is getting pulled away from K-12 public school. And let's be clear about why that's happening. It's because K-12 public schools are the schools where most black and brown children attend. But
And
they're pulling funding from those schools to give to private and religious schools.
now, so you say, and I know this is kind of getting away from your question, Bernard. Stick around to the ending. We got a great
Oh,
ending. I
I'm
want
sorry.
you to see, Bernard. It's kind of tying into our sports thing. My dear high school friend, a high school classmate and friend. Hello, Miss Meredith. Ding, ding, ding. We got you. Yes, ma'am. Listen, um, I coach high school football, and there's certain football players over my career that when we shake hands at the end of games with some of these private schools, that nationally known schools, for football. They're powerhouses. They're powerhouses because they can recruit everywhere. When I say everywhere, I don't mean locally, but I mean all over the nation. Or if they need a kicker, they go south of the border and get one. So we don't let our players, some of our star players, walk through the line at the end of the game because they're so bold. They will recruit them right while we're walking with them. I said that to say this. They're talking about how superior going to religious schools and private schools, and I'm definitely not
Mhm.
against it. I was on staff at a church. They had an awesome school. My son went there. Um, However, what they don't tell you, they tell you they're giving you vouchers and giving monies, but they don't give you the full amount. It may be tuition, but it doesn't cover lunch. It doesn't cover transportation. It doesn't cover the activity fees. So these are things before we abandon our public schools where most of us
Right.
received our education. Because, like Ms. Linda said, they're the ones that primarily services our people. So that's an excellent question.
Mhm.
Also, President Trump, I'm gonna keep tying him into Project 2025. I'm gonna tie him into all these right wing amendments that we're looking at on the ballot. These right wing things that the Governor DeSantis in Florida is pushing. Tie him into it. If you haven't voted, think about this when you go tomorrow. There are a lot of dangers, not only the dangers the Supreme Court is giving him, the things that he said. One of the things he said that if he's elected president and he sees a school teaching Black history, he's going to be sure to personally pull
Yes.
funding from that school. So we have
Yep.
to look at all of these issues. All of these things
Yep.
are of Ms. Linda, we're getting ready to wrap up. I know you're going to share your
Oh,
website.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
what is your experience been like sharing and researching and sharing this over the last couple of months leading into this election?
Mhm. Um, there, th- there have been times when I am just going to be honest, when I've come to tears because it is that horrible. And people are starting to become numb to just hearing the words Project 2025. Oh, it's not real. Oh, yes, the heck it is real. And if we this is how things get done to us,
That's
is
right.
when we don't pay attention and when we don't fight back and when we think that people are not actually that evil. Yes, they are. Yes, they can be. Yes, they have been.
Yes.
We're talking about a country that enslaved Black people for hundreds of years. And you
Yes.
think that they're not gonna take funding from a school if they teach about slavery?
Mm,
Really?
mm, yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, this is it's horrific. It is horrific. And it's already been happening. Little by little by little. They're doing it's purposeful. Little by little so we don't notice it. And
Have
then
you
one day we wake up and say, "Oh my God, how did we get here?"
Have you? I know you have some insulation, employment wise, and coverage and so forth. And I know some of the precautions that you take personally. Um,
Mhm.
and by the way, everybody, one of the things we've been taught through this election cycles, we've been monitoring polls and everything. We have been given all kind of precautions to care for our personal safety. It is just that
Mhm.
dangerous. And we saw what January the 6th was like. We don't know what um, November the 6th will be like if this thing
Right.
bends a certain way. Or last cycle, 2020, the president was officially elected that Saturday. We don't know what it's like. We've been
Right.
told that there are militias standing by of supremacist groups and Proud Boys down in Miami around polls during this cycle, during early voting. So we just don't know. So don't take anything for granted. It's a shame we have to
Mhm.
live like this. And it was so good when we didn't. It was so
Right.
good when we didn't.
Right.
Another one of the dangers that Donald Trump has brought on. And Bernard, I want to thank you. I've been watching your posts, man. I might not always hit like by them or comment. I'm just kind of hustling by. But thank you for pointing out everything that you've been pointing out that has come about since that candidate has been a part of the election cycle for the last 10 years. I'm liking what I'm hearing the Harris campaign say. Let's end that 10-year nightmare once and for all. Let's let that culminate with what's going to happen with tomorrow night's vote. Ms. Linda, what other assessments? We got about 2 minutes. What are some other assessments? And just go ahead and end that by introducing your link so we can show it to our audience. What other assessments do you have of this whole election cycle, 2024?
Just I want to reiterate being safe, honestly, because threats have already happened to certain groups, to certain people, to certain churches, things that we're aware of that are already going on. And so be extremely, extremely vigilant, be careful, do whatever you need to do to keep you and your family safe. And I don't know if you believe in a higher power or, if you do, pray to that higher power because we need all the help we can get. Truly, truly. Go out and don't, if you can help it, don't go out alone.
That's right.
Especially for women. I'm sorry. I don't want to say anything that could be misconstrued as being sexist, but women, we always have to be careful for our safety. But
Yes.
God only knows what God only knows. That's all I can say. So I get speechless when I talk about it because it's truly horrific. It truly is. I mean, they want to do away with parts of the Constitution. This
Yeah. 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 Just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, what she is exemplifying is what many of us feel. And Ms. Linda's a tough lady, and she's tough skinned, and you see her passion, her care, her concern. Ms. Linda, we just want to thank you, and we want you to shout out your website, what you brought on. We want to thank you for this
okay.
is your second time coming by. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for enhancing our show and speaking to our voters. You see our friends Mag, Linda, Miss Jan, my good friend Bernard, so many others that come on and speak to us. Thank you so much for sharing with us. What an awesome person you are, and
Thank
you can
you.
reach her through Faith in Florida. She's a wealth of research, and that's what Faith in Florida is about. Please see her. Ms. Linda, bless you.
Thank you. So, if you want more information, Faith in Florida put together a guidebook on the training that I've done. And this is the title of it: Legislating Hate, Harm, and Danger, Project 2025 Guidebook. So, it's a bit.ly link. So, what you have to do is bit.ly/2025 mandate, and the guidebook will come up. And it goes through a whole lot more than I was able to cover. So if you go through that carefully, it's about 38 pages, maybe close to 4. I don't know. But go through that carefully, and you'll learn even more about Project 2025.
Thank you again, Ms. Linda Wiggins,
Thank
representing
you.
so well Pastor Rhonda and the team at Faith in Florida. Glad to be a part of that team. And I do
And
believe in
we're
a
glad to have you.
amen. And his name is the Lord, and the Lord Jesus, and we thank God for him. Listen, before we go off tonight, Bernard, you're gonna hate me for this. There's this constant question as to who is the GOAT when it comes to basketball. Well, I'm gonna go with money. I'm gonna go with Michael Jordan. but I guarantee you when it comes to being the
Ugh,
GOAT of athletes,
ugh.
report. Thank you for that ringing endorsement, Ms. Linda. When we talk about the GOATs of purporting social justice, there are none better than at King James. I told you I'd meet you halfway on that, Bernard. We're going to close out the show tonight with a post that he put on social media. It's real short. It's over on X. Check it out. It's on YouTube now also. We'll see you next week talking about the election. Go vote, go vote, go vote.
Bye,
All right. Heck yeah. It's cool. Black guy. That's one of my buddies. We had fun. We carved watermelons together. It was awesome.
No, I'm not a racist.
They're taking black jobs now. The whole country's going to be like, it'll be like Detroit. A lot of it's about the genes, isn't it? Don't you believe? They're poisoning the blood of our country. Troublemaker. These are troublemakers. Look, I love the old days, you know? You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. Now, if you had one really violent day, like one rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately. But we're going to indemnify police officers and law enforcement from being destroyed by the radical left. You're changing history, you're changing culture.
Of course I hate these people. And let's all hate these people because